Ever look up at a jumbo jet and think, could we build something even bigger? Like something that just glides through the air?
It's a question that's captured imaginations for centuries.
Well, today, we're diving into the captivating world of airships. Those behemoths of the sky that promise to do just that.
Oh, it's a story filled with ambition and innovation.
And tragedy.
Yes, of course, the Hindenburg. We'll get to that. But first, picture this. It's way before engines, before we even understood aerodynamics.
People were strapping chicken feathers to themselves, trying to fly.
Desperate times, desperate measures.
It sounds comical now, right?
It does.
And it shows that primal urge to break free from gravity.
To conquer the skies.
Exactly. And that's where the story of airships begins.
There were two camps, essentially. The heavier-than-air folks.
Which led to airplanes.
Right. But then there's the lighter-than-air crowd.
Our airship pioneers.
Think of a boat on water. It doesn't defy gravity. It displaces water to offset its weight.
Buoyancy.
Exactly. Lighter-than-air flight uses a gas hydrogen, helium, to achieve that same lift. And it all really took off with two brothers and a happy accident.
This is where the Montgolfier brothers come in, right?
Mm-hmm.
Back in the 1770s.
You know your airship history. They were tinkering with these dot contraptions. Imagine a giant laundry basket, cloth and paper. Not exactly aerodynamic.
Far cry from the sleek airships we picture today.
Oh, absolutely. But they fill this thing with hot air, and it lifts off the ground.
Yeah, what?
They stumbled upon the power of hot air for buoyancy. And get this, they even gave a demonstration to King Louis XV.
Look, talk about an audience.
Duck and a hen were the first passengers, by the way.
Only the best for the king. But this wasn't just a spectacle, was it? This proved lighter-than-air flight was possible.
Oh, it ignited imaginations across Europe. And one person particularly captivated was Ferdinand Graf von Zeppelin.
Now that's a name.
Quite a mouthful, isn't it?
Huh?
Zeppelin had a vision. He'd seen balloons used in the American Civil War for reconnaissance.
Espionage.
Exactly. But he saw potential for something far grander than just floating about. He wanted massive, rigid airships, controlled flight, long distances. Remember those early balloons? They were more like glorified kites.
At the mercy of the wind.
Zeppelin wanted to bring structure, steerability to this whole thing.
The birth of the airships we know today.
Exactly. And so he set out with this ambitious goal and immediately hit roadblocks.
The path to innovation is rarely smooth. What were some of his early struggles?
His early prototypes, the LZ-1, LZ-2, LZ for Luftschiff, Zeppelin, by the way, Zeppelin airship,
Catchy.
they were plagued with problems. Technical issues, money was tight. He poured his own fortune into the project, even mortgaged his wife's assets.
That's dedication. Or maybe a one-way ticket to the doghouse.
Imagine those dinner conversations. But he kept refining his designs, learning from each failure. And all this while, a new competitor was emerging. The Wright brothers and their heavier-than-air flying machines.
Things were about to get very interesting. It was a race to conquer the skies.
And then World War I broke out. Talk about a game changer. Suddenly, those peaceful airships Zeppelin imagined, they're thrust into the thick of war.
Yeah, what was the impact on his dream? I can't imagine that helped.
It was a mixed bag, honestly. On one hand, it showed how useful airships could be for war, like for spying, even bombing raids, sadly.
Wow.
The German military, they saw that potential right away. They poured money into Zeppelin's company. He finally had the support to really perfect those designs. Take the LZ-3, for instance. Proved itself to the military, became the symbol of German innovation.
Oh, I bet. But at the same time, it kind of cemented the link between Zeppelins and warfare, didn't it?
Exactly. Hard to separate them after that. And then came the Treaty of Versailles, designed to limit Germany's military after the war.
Right, I remember learning about that.
Well, part of that was strict rules about airship development. Big setback for Zeppelin, his vision of peace through technology.
It's amazing how quickly technology can go from, like, a sign of progress to a weapon.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder how things could have been different if war hadn't broken out, you know?
For sure. But even with all that, there was one guy who really fought to bring Zeppelin's dream back to its peaceful roots. Hugo Eckener.
Beckener. The Angels of Peace guy, right?
Yeah.
The one who saw airships connecting people,
Well,
not as weapons of war.
that's the one. He had worked alongside Zeppelin, took over the company after the war, and he had this vision. He knew people wanted more than just speed. They wanted luxury and experience.
Kind of like those fancy cruise ships today, right?
Exactly. And he had the perfect airship for that vision, the LZ-126. Later on, it was called the USS Los Angeles.
Oh, yeah. It flew, what was it, 8,000 kilometers from Germany to America. In 80 hours. That's still impressive.
It captured everyone's imagination. Newspapers couldn't get enough of it, this technological marvel. Akinura, too, he became a celebrity. This symbol of hope, of progress, just what the world needed after such a devastating war.
He almost pulled it off, didn't he? Eckner, I mean.
Yeah.
Almost brought those peaceful airships to the forefront.
He almost did. And then came the Hindenburg.
The name still sends shivers down my spine, even after all these years. The Hindenburg. Luxury, grandeur, all gone in an instant. What was it like to even be on that thing?
Picture this huge airship, almost 3 football fields long, dwarfed everything else in the sky. To give you an idea, it was about the size of a Boeing 747.
No way. As big as a jumbo jet.
Yeah, but with a level of luxury you wouldn't believe. Even today's first class can't compare.
I've seen pictures, it's true. Those plush cabins, dining room, panoramic views. They even had a grand piano on board. Talk about traveling in style.
Oh, it was the status symbol. A ticket across the Atlantic. Set you back about $7,000 in today's money.
Only for the super rich.
Pretty much. But for that, you got an experience like no other. It wasn't just travel, it was an event.
People would gather just to watch it take off and land. Like this massive thing floating on air. Amazing, really.
And nobody could have predicted that on one spring day, all that sophistication would go up in flames, changing everything.
May 6th, 1937. After what seemed like a normal trip across the Atlantic, the Hindenburg was landing at Lakehurst Naval Air Station in New Jersey. Crowds were there, news cameras rolling.
There's something eerie about that old footage now. Grainy film, that dramatic music. You can sense the anticipation as the Hindenburg comes into view. And then, in a blink, everything changes.
It's like that moment is burned into our memories, even all these years later. One minute, it's this symbol of progress, this amazing feat of engineering. The next, it's a terrifying fire falling from the sky.
34 seconds, that's all it took. A lifetime of dreams, ambitions, up in smoke in less than a minute.
It's tough to even imagine the terror on board. Those people thinking they were on this revolutionary airship, and then it becomes a death trap. No wonder the Hindenburg disaster became the symbol of, I don't know, shattered dreams, like a warning about pushing too far.
It really does make you think. And it wasn't just the immediate horror, it was what came after. That shock, that fear, those images of the Hindenburg burning. The world had never seen anything like it.
Headlines everywhere, investigations, everyone trying to make sense of it. How could this happen? That must have been the big question.
Absolutely. And that's how those conspiracy theories got started. Sabotage, a disgruntled employee, even people saying it was those opposed to Germany's rise.
Yeah, with everything going on politically back then, it's easy to see why people jump to those conclusions. But you're saying the truth is less exciting.
Less exciting, maybe. More about the laws of physics, really. Decades of research points to static electricity as the most likely culprit.
Static electricity? Like what, getting a shock on a dry day? That took down the Hindenburg.
Think of it on a massive scale. The Hindenburg, it used hydrogen for lift, right? Like most airships did back then.
Right, super buoyant.
And super flammable. As it flew, static built up on its metal frame.
Oh, wow. So one little spark?
One spark is all it takes with hydrogen. It's a harsh reminder that physics, it doesn't mess around.
Makes you wonder, why even use hydrogen if it's so dangerous? Why not helium? That's what they use now, right?
Safer, for sure. Helium doesn't burn. But problem was, back then the U.S. basically controlled all the helium production.
They did.
Pretty much. And they weren't keen on exporting it, especially to Germany.
So the Hindenburg, a symbol of German engineering,
Right.
forced to use a riskier gas because of politics. Talk about adding insult to injury.
It's a complicated story. And to really understand the end of the airship era, you got to factor in the airplane.
Ah, right. Faster, more nimble, and no giant flammable gas bags to worry about.
Exactly. Airplanes were always going to be tough competition, but the Hindenburg, that really shook people's faith in airships.
Yeah. It's like everyone thought, that's it, airships are done.
For a while, it seemed that way. But, well, the story doesn't end there.
Hold on, are you saying airships? They might make a comeback.
There's a movement brewing. Climate change is a big factor. People are looking at airships, especially for cargo, in a whole new light. Think about those huge cargo ships, the ones that go across the oceans.
Those things are terrible for the environment, right?
Massive polluters. But what if you could replace some of them with airships? The new ones, like the Airlander 10, they're designed to be fuel efficient, way less emissions.
Wow.
Plus, they can land in places those cargo planes can't, open up new trade routes. It's exciting.
So instead of those clunky cargo ships, we might see these giant, eco-friendly airships floating across the sky.
It's a possibility. There are still hurdles, of course. cost, regulations, got to convince people they're safe. But the dream's alive. Quieter, cleaner air travel, maybe the 21st century. It'll be the airship's comeback.
What a deep dive this has been. From strapping on feathers to the Hindenburg to maybe, just maybe, seeing airships in our skies again. It makes you realize we humans, we never stop trying to conquer the skies, do we?
Never. It's in our nature. That desire to explore, to push boundaries, even after tragedies like the Hindenburg, that's what keeps us moving forward.